Today, I'm covering the case of Chris Watts, who will be 40 years of age on May 16, 2025. Chris Watts has been imprisoned in Wisconsin since 2018 for murdering his wife Shanonn and two young daughters, Bella and Celeste. His wife was also pregnant with their third child when she was murdered. Let me start this off with a little background on the Watts family. Chris Watts met Shanonn after sending her a Facebook friend request. They were both living in North Carolina at that time. Shanonn was recently divorced when she met Chris. After dating for 2 years, Chris and Shanonn married in 2012. In 2013, they chose to relocate to Colorado for a career opportunity, and in December of that year, they had their first child, Bella. Chris started working for Anadarko Petroleum in January 2015 as a field coordinator. They also had their second child, Celeste, in July of 2015. Shanonn was employed to work at a children's hospital at that time. She left that job because she and Chris were not making enough money to take care of their family of 4. Then she got the perfect job to work for a multi-level marketing company called Lavelle. Due to her outgoing personality, she fit right into that job. She has her own Facebook page where she would go live and show new things available for purchase. She was also posting a lot about her life in general on Facebook. One thing I observed was that she posts her entire life on the internet, including how Chris and she met. Part of the job of multi-level marketing firms is to go on platforms like Instagram or Facebook and actually sell the products, talk about them, and engage people with you personally to develop a relationship with your clients like modern influencers. Shanonn was very confident and successful as a saleswoman at Lavelle. She was a star of the company, even won a Lexus car due to her high sales numbers. While she goes live on Facebook, Chris occasionally appears as well. But unlike Shanonn, Chris is not that comfortable on camera and he seems very shy. Despite occasional introversion from Chris, Shannon's relationship with her husband was actually very good. Friends and family would praise him, saying he was the ideal father because he was always present for the children. He was taking care of them, and he seemed to have strong love for them. Their neighbors also describe him as an introvert. He was quite dismissive and silent. He kept to himself a lot. Shanonn found out she was pregnant for their third child in May of 2018, so she captured Chris' reaction to the positive pregnancy test. She was seated on the couch with her 2 daughters, holding a pregnancy test. And when Chris walks in, she shows him the positive pregnancy test. Chris's remark was unusual. Let's assume he was an introvert, and because he was on Facebook Live, he didn't know how to respond at the time. They were frequently sent out on corporate trips, and in June, Shanonn and Chris traveled to San Diego, which she streamed on Facebook Live. They seemed to get to visit a lot of sites. Due to her job, they were well-traveled. They planned to host a gender reveal party in August. However, Shanonn and her 2 girls left on a 6-week trip to see family in their hometown on June 27th. They called it a vacation, but the troubles in the relationship started to appear. Neighbors would describe hearing screams and fighting. They'd quarrel on the driveway, and the next day Shanonn would leave for home for 6 weeks. 6 weeks is a long time. Chris Watts decided to make the most of his leisure time and bring the girl he was having an affair with home for the first time where his wife and the kids live. Nicole Kessinger is one of Chris's co-workers. She works for the company as a contractor. I will sometimes refer to her as Nicole the mistress for the rest of the story. While Shanonn was away visiting family, she noticed a change in Chris's behavior. She felt like he wasn't texting her back. Since she's pregnant, it's her husband, so you'd expect them to text you. Shanonn is aware that something is different. She decides to text him and confronts him asking, "You haven't called me back. What's going on? I haven't heard from you." This was sometime in the beginning of July. Nicole Kessinger's first recorded phone call to Chris occurred on July 7th. They had a 2-minute talk around 12 a.m. Chris' phone was pinged on many routers at various eateries the same night as the 2-minute phone call. On July 8th, Chris texts Shanonn back, claiming he fell asleep as soon as he got home from work because the heat had worn him out and that he loved her. Shanonn then responds back asking if he is okay because he's still acting strangely, and she suspects he doesn't want to talk to her. Chris responds that he is all right and that he is just particularly stressed out at work. He feels like he is under a lot of pressure at work and is simply stressed out. Shanonn responds saying she loved and missed him, and she wishes her husband would just communicate with her. On July 14th, phone records show Chris and Nicole, the mistress, interacting again. He also received 4 missed calls from Shanonn, and she continued to call throughout the day, which remained unanswered. Later in the day, Chris and Shanonn exchanged a 1-minute phone call. The same day, Shanonn complained to her girlfriends that she noticed something odd about Chris and felt like the relationship was distant. He used to be quite hands-on and affectionate with her, but not anymore. On July 17th, Chris told Shanonn that he no longer wanted to be together and did not want the baby. But Shanonn did not want to separate, so she recommended marriage counseling, but he refused. He simply wanted out. Nicole Kessinger and Chris Watts texted each other a number of nude images on July 18th. Chris set up a hidden folder on his phone. It seemed like a calculator application, but when you typed in a code, it transformed into a photo album. So he began transferring all of these images into the photo album. Also, his computer search engine revealed that he was looking for holiday destinations. He was planning to travel somewhere with Nicole. They both were obsessed with each other at this point. On July 24th, Nicole, the mistress, discovered that Chris had said to his wife that he wanted to leave her. She knew he was already married. Shanonn is still texting Chris, asking what's going on and telling him how she feels about everything that's been built up. On July 28th, Chris and Nicole go on a vacation to the sand dunes, where they stay the night. There are multiple pictures of this that were kept in his secret calculator app. Chris flew to North Carolina on July 31st to bring back Shanonn and the kids. After a day there, they fly back. Chris was still talking to Nicole when he was in North Carolina. The family said that he appeared to be extremely quiet and distant when he was there. Shanonn messaged her friend on August 7th claiming Chris does not want another baby and that he is happy with Bella and Celeste. This was really upsetting for Shanonn because he told her months ago that he wanted another child and now saying he doesn't want it. Shanonn and Chris went to the appointment for an ultrasound on August 8th, where they found out that she's having a boy, which they were going to announce at the gender reveal party. They were going to name him Nico. After the appointment, she decided to cancel the gender reveal party because, as per Shanonn, she and Chris are no longer compatible. He refuses to hug her, has no interest in her, and does not want to go to counseling. However, Shanonn really doesn't want and can't afford to be a single parent. So she then looks for couples therapy books on Amazon. She asks Chris if he would read it, and he says he will, so she buys it in hopes of fixing the marriage. On August 9th, Shanonn met with her friend Nicole Atkinson, not to be confused with Nicole the mistress. Shanonn and her friend Nicole leave on business for Arizona that day. Before she went on the trip, she texted her friend saying she and Chris had their best talk yet. She was really happy because he promised a weekend getaway after she returned from this trip. On August 10th, Chris asked his neighbor if they could watch the girls while he went out to a baseball game. But he did not go to a baseball game. Instead, Chris ended up going out that night with Nicole the mistress. Just one day into Shannon's Arizona trip, she noticed a $60 credit card charge Chris just made at a restaurant. That was Chris's first mistake in revealing his affair to Shanonn. Prior to that, he used gift cards to pay for all of his and Nicole's meals. But he had run out of them on this last dinner date and used the Watts family joint credit card. By this point, Shanonn was convinced that Chris had fallen out of love with her and was cheating on her. She was fuming. After a long flight, Shannon's friend Nicole drops her off at home at 1:48 a.m. on August 13th as they return from their business trip. Around 5:30 a.m., security tape from the neighbor captures Chris reversing his truck up into the garage, then piling some items into his car. There isn't a clear view of what Chris is putting in the automobile. It seems like bags. It's blurry and difficult to see. Around 8:30 a.m. on the same day, Chris contacts the school where Celeste and Bella attend and informs them that the children will no longer be attending. He did not simply say they would be absent. He stated that they would no longer be attending. That following day, Nicole Atkinson, Shannon's friend, texted her, but she didn't receive any reply. During the trip, Shanonn told her that she wasn't feeling well, and she also mentioned a doctor's appointment that morning. Nicole was simply checking in with her to see how she was doing and how she feels after the doctor's appointment. Nicole thought it was strange that Shanonn didn't respond. So Nicole and her son drive over to Shanonn and Chris' home around 11 a.m. She knocks on the door, but she did not receive a response from inside the house. So she attempts to open the front door. They have one of those front door cameras. If something triggers it, the camera sends an alert to your phone, indicating that someone is at the front door, which is then passed on to Chris' phone. Nicole texts Chris saying she is at their house and she's very worried. She hasn't heard from Shanonn, so she demands to know what was going on. Chris informs Nicole that Shanonn said she was going on a play date, and that was all he knew. So Nicole heads into their garage and sees that their Lexus car is there, along with the 2 car seats. This is their only car, so Nicole realizes she couldn't have gone on a play date without her car. She left the car and the car seats. There's no way she'd drive the kids without them. Nicole goes back to the front door and tries to enter. She realizes that the door is closed from the inside, so no one could have left via the front door. When Nicole tried to unlock the door, an alarm went off on Chris' phone again. Chris called Nicole to warn her she needed to leave the property since Shanonn was on a play date and to stop trying to break into their home. Nicole warns Chris that she intends to call the police, but Chris advises her not to do so and to avoid involving them. Nicole contacts the doctor's office and discovers that Shanonn did not show up for her appointment. Nicole then calls the police to do a welfare check. Nicole tells Chris that she called the cops. Chris said that he's on his way home. The police show up at Chris's house and start to knock on the house's front door, refusing to enter without Chris's approval. The police officer speaks with Chris on the phone and asks for the passcode to get via the garage. Chris tells them the passcode doesn't work and to wait for him to come. After a while, Chris arrives at his house where the police, Nicole and her son are waiting. There are clips of him walking up to the house in slow motion. Chris had no sense of urgency since his wife and kids were missing. After looking around the house, the police noted that nothing looked out of the ordinary. The only thing strange was that Shannon's belongings were inside the home. The only thing that was missing from the house were the bed sheets from the girls' bedroom and the master bedroom. Everything else was there except for the bed sheets. Nicole found Shannon's cell phone, which was in between the cushion seats on the couch. Nicole swore that Shanonn would never leave the house without her phone. While talking with the police, Chris says that after Shanonn returned home, they had a talk about their marriage, got into a fight, and then slept. He woke up around 5 a.m. and left for work. Since police were at Chris' house, the local news came and did an interview with Chris, asking what was going on. In the interview, Chris pleads for his family's return. He said, "Shanonn, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring them back." However, the people who watched this interview believed he had something to do with the disappearance of his family. His expression didn't match that of the person whose whole family was missing. The whole interview, he had a smile on his face, even sometimes laughing. That same day, Nicole, the mistress, and Chris have a 111-minute phone discussion, during which she claims she had no knowledge his wife and children were missing. Chris later revealed that they only just had phone sex. Chris also went through his phone, attempting to delete text conversations. He was also attempting to remove everything related to Nicole and get rid of any evidence. On August 14th, Nicole was reportedly searching for Shanonn Watts on Google. She also Googled "Can cops trace deleted text messages?" and spent a considerable amount of time Googling how to get rid of text messages, which was strange. Chris was taken to the FBI for an interview the following day. He was asked if he was having an affair, but he denied it, saying, "No, I would not do that." He also suggests that Shanonn may have had an affair. Chris also admits that they fell out of love with each other and that their relationship was not going well. The FBI alerted Chris that he was a suspect and requested that he take a polygraph test, which he later did. Nicole, the mistress, decided to come forward to the police after he saw Chris' TV interviews and explain what was going on from her perspective. She told them about the affair as well. This was going on at the same time as Chris's first interview. Despite making conflicting claims throughout police interviews, she was never charged with any involvement in the deaths. One of Chris's co-workers discovered emails between Chris and Nicole and wanted to turn them in for evidence. He also turned in Chris's GPS that was in his truck. On August 17th, Chris received his father from the airport and went directly to take the polygraph test, and he failed badly. He got among the lowest possible scores on it. Generally, a score of -4 is considered failing a polygraph, and he scored a -18. So the FBI started questioning Chris again, pressuring him to confess. Chris keeps claiming he doesn't know anything about what happened to Shanonn and the kids. The police already looked up the GPS on Chris's truck to see where he went. The authorities took a drone shot of the workplace, and they found the bed sheets that were missing from the home. They also see movement in the ground, as if something had been buried recently. After a lot of pressure, Chris requested to speak with his father privately, so the FBI brought him into the interrogation room, leaving them alone. Father asked him if he had hurt them and if he had anything to do with their disappearance. Chris finally says yes. He tells his father that when Shanonn came from the trip, they started arguing about marriage. After arguing, he went downstairs where he saw Shanonn killing the kids through baby monitor in the living room. So Chris got angry and killed Shanonn. With that, FBI agents returns to the room. Chris's father remains inside as well. This whole time, Chris only cried after he got caught. Chris admitted to only killing Shanonn and not the kids. So Chris Watts was arrested, and he got fired from his work that day. Within 2 weeks of being arrested, he admitted to killing his daughters as part of a plea deal. Prosecutors agreed not to pursue the death penalty in exchange for the guilty plea. He was sentenced to 5 life sentences with no possibility of parole. His sentence also includes 48 years for illegally terminating Ms. Watts' pregnancy and 36 years for disposing of the victim's remains. With the many pieces of evidence collected against him after the arrest and some letters he wrote to an author from prison, the full picture became very clear. Despite Chris' original claim that the murders were the result of a sudden outburst, according to his own admission, he had been plotting to kill his family for weeks. Before Shanonn came from the trip that night, he went into each of his daughters' rooms while they were sleeping and tried to smother them with a pillow from their beds. But he couldn't for whatever reason. According to Chris, after Shanonn returned from the business trip, they began arguing in their room. Chris informed her that he was having an affair, did not love her, and wanted to divorce. Shanonn was initially hurt and then furious. She told him that if he left her, he would never see the children again. He felt enraged, and all of the things he despised about their marriage came to the surface, so he strangled her while she glanced back at him. He considered stopping, but realized that doing so would prevent him from being with Nicole Kessinger. He didn't get any defensive wounds since he claimed she couldn't fight back. After a while, Shanonn was dead. Bella and Celeste had awoken and entered the room while he was wrapping his wife in a sheet, wondering what was wrong with her. He said they were crying, but he didn't want to comfort them. He struggled to move Shannon's body down the steps, which upset the girls even more. This was why he planned to kill them first. He stated that he had been outraged countless times because the girls were still alive, forcing him to come to terms with killing them for the second time. He took Shannon's lifeless body to the truck and got her inside, then asked the girls to join him. They did, carrying their blankets and stuffed toys with them. When Bella told him they needed their car seats, he reassured them that everything would be fine this time. Still furious and shivering from what Chris claims were years of pent-up rage, he drove for just over an hour to his workplace. Once there, he smothers Celeste with her blanket. Then he climbs the ladder to the tank of deadly crude oil, forcing her body through its 8-inch opening. He recalls how he had no feelings for her until he threw her into the tank. He was shocked at how easy it was to simply let her go. He heard the splash when she hit the oil. He returns to the truck, and a horrified Bella asks her father if he will do the same thing to her as he did to Celeste. She had watched him toss her younger sister into the tank. He does not recall his response to her, but that was his intention. She screamed out, "Daddy, no," as he tried to smother her with the same blanket. She was the only one who fought. The autopsy results revealed that she had a huge tear between her lip and gums, as well as bit her tongue on many occasions. He then shoved her into the second crude oil tank. Being larger than her sister, he had to force her through the opening. She had scratched scars on her buttocks from being pushed through the impossibly small hole. He had carefully placed them in separate tanks to ensure they would not resurface and to keep them as far away from Shanonn as possible. Then he digs a shallow hole for Shanonn and tosses her into it, covering her with soil. Then he explained how he felt. "My entire life lay on that oil site. I could only feel relief that I was now free to be with Nicole. My feelings of affection for her overwhelmed me. I did not feel any remorse. I felt as if I could kill anything and feel justified in doing so. I felt no regret for what I did. I did not feel horrible about killing my entire family. I honestly didn't feel anything. My attention turned to the dog. Did I remember to put him in his cage?